property advice for real.
With Houza, the UAE's new home for buying, renting or selling a property. And what a morning to be speaking to the guys at houza about property, because we have a lovely 50 basis point Fed interest rate rise and now a UAE interest rate rise to talk to them about. Everyone's thinking mortgages. We're very pleased this morning to be speaking to Matt Gregory, who's the CCO at houza. Matt, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Brandy. How are you?
I'm good. Now, tell me, let's talk about what happened before we talk about what happens next. This rate rise, widely anticipated, absolutely no surprise to anyone. Did we see a pickup in market activity before, people trying to lock in fixed rate mortgages before this decision?
No, I think that, the last few months for the property market here in Dubai have seen record transactions month on month. So, one could argue that, yes, it could be due to that, but I really do think that, the property value here in Dubai is still very, very good. And I think that as we move forward, look, first-time buyers may start to, have a decision to make on whether they actually start to purchase that property now. But in general, rates are still very low, right? I think that there is still, a good time to finance your property through a mortgage. There's plenty of opportunity out there at the minute in order to make sure that you're getting a good deal, even though prices are more than they were, let's say, over the last couple of years in terms of increases. The outlook for the property market here in Dubai, I think, is still very strong. It's still, money is still cheap at the end of the day. And I think that even with 0.5% at the minute, people are still going to want to see laying down their roots, first-time buyers coming into the market, giving it still a further boost as we go through this year when, as we look towards the end of the year, as I think people like Ed, who you had on earlier, have already said, we could be looking at, many more increases as we go through into what will be the turn of the year into 2023. So now is still a great time to buy. And I think now is still, we're going to see, a real increase in property transactions as people want to get on the property market before it might become unaffordable for them. So, there's still lots of things to weigh up depending on where you are on the property ladder. I speak to lots of people that run and own real estate companies here. Different views, but the main view here, a bit like Andrew said earlier, is that actually we're still going to see strong demand as we go through the rest of the year for property.
Where's the potential tipping point then, Matt? If we are a little bit less sensitive maybe than other markets to interest rate rises, what's the point where people do pause?
I think that as we move forward and the Fed increases to rates, I think that we've got, 5 more meetings as we go through this year. We're looking at anywhere between, depending on what you read, right, anywhere between 2.5% to say 3% is where we're likely to finish this year. That is actually quite a lot then, right? I think that 0.5%, 200, maybe 300 dirhams on your monthly, whereas 3% as we go through this particular period, that can be an increase of over 1,000 dirhams. 1,000 dirhams per month is a lot of money all of a sudden. So people may start to look, well, actually, whether or not it's still a good time to buy, still a good time to take a mortgage. We run a survey on houza not too long ago, where it actually came out that 90% of people were first-time buyers. That's a huge number. So, first-time buyers looking to buy their home, they draw down on that 20% LTV only once. So actually the opportunity to get on board now, as opposed to later on, whereby 1,000 dirhams can mean the difference between making that decision and not. You can lock in a fixed rate mortgage for 3 to 5 years. You know exactly what your outgoings are. You may be able to weather this inflation storm that we're going through at the moment. 40-year high in the US is just an incredible number. And the only way to actually combat that is to make good on their promise to sort of stop this cheap money. So as we move forward, who knows where it might end up. But I think that inflection point, when it starts to look at 4 figures rather than 3 figures in terms of your extra monthly outgoing, that could be the inflection point where people start to think, well, actually, is it still a good time to rent? Bearing in mind, rental prices are absolutely going crazy at the moment too. So a mortgage still is a much better option than taking that rental increase, of which, I've got friends out there that have just renegotiated or having to downsize because of the fact that rents are just going crazy in their particular market. So, I think that the time will tell as we go through, say, the next 6 months in the turn to the year. But I think the outlook really is still very positive. You want to get on the mortgage ladder, now is a good time. Fix that rate, get on the mortgage ladder, understand exactly what your payments are. And at that point, then, it doesn't matter how far they put it up over the next year or two, but where your monthly outgoings, and hopefully that can mean the difference between taking a mortgage now and waiting, and then hitting that inflection point, which means it becomes possibly unaffordable for some.
What point as well do we see this impacting prices? I mean, one of the reasons that governments around the world are putting interest rates up, and it's not just the US. I mean, Australia's just had a rate rise. The UK definitely will have one later on today, is to cool that housing market and to bring prices and speculative activity down. Will we see any of these rate rises this year weigh in on prices here in the UAE?
I think it just comes back to demand. I think that we have, a huge amount of demand for property here in the UAE. And as that demand continues, prices will continue, possibly, maybe not increase to the same levels that they have at this moment in time. But I think that, if you look at Dubai as a city, we're still pretty cheap compared to that of other cities, right? I think it's like three times lower than the likes of, say, London. So where we have an opportunity here in Dubai at the moment to still benefit from an increase in the property market, I think that it just gives us an opportunity to keep things focused in terms of the real estate market, to make sure that actually it's progressing forward as we go through this particular year. But it's still positive, I believe, and so as the people that I speak to are still very bullish about the property market here in Dubai. And so, whilst there's demand, I think that things will continue. People will still take mortgages. People will have the opportunity in order to, again, call Dubai their home. Lots of positive things, as you spoke about with Sarah from our houza last time, on the visas. Lots of positive things coming out from the government to make sure that people want to see Dubai as their home. And I think that as long as that continues, the demand will still be there for sure. I'm in a rack at the moment, actually, on a sort of mini Eid holiday. The hotel is absolutely full, and it's full of people that I believe may look to actually turn Dubai into their home, because why not, right? I think that we've got a lot of positive things coming out from the government. There's still opportunity to take relatively cheap money in terms of where we're at the moment for mortgages. You've got Michael coming on in a minute, who's a mortgage expert, who's the CEO of a mortgage company. And so, I think that he will be, in best position to see, what types of mortgages people can actually take at the minute in order to make sure that they're locking in what is still very favourable rates for money.
Super quickly, Matt, you mentioned people moving into Dubai. What kind of percentage of those that you're dealing with property-wise at the moment are new residents?
I think that's really difficult for me to answer, because the people that I speak to are actually real estate owners. So at Houza, clearly, we're a property portal and not a real estate company. But a lot of people that I speak to in the market, are dealing with people coming over. Russia clearly is a big topic at this moment in time. And I think that, there's a lot of people coming over at the minute that are, first-time owners, whether investors or looking to actually come down and make Dubai their home. But, first-time buyers, as I said, are 90% of the people that were on our survey for Houza. So given that, I think that, again, mortgages at the minute for first-time buyers, still cheap, still an opportunity to get on the property ladder. Yes, demand is high, therefore, but prices are still somewhat lower than they were in 2014. So there's still a way to go till we overtake that as we see, property price top level, I suppose we could call it, whereby the property demand was super high back then too.
Matt Gregory, CEO of Houza.